Have you ever felt like your case of dizziness or vertigo is falling through the cracks? Maybe you've sought care but found no answers or relief?
In the American medical system, dizziness-related cases often go unresolved. In the county of San Diego, a dedicated vertigo detective investigates these incidences. These are her case files.
Welcome to a new series, Case Files with me, the Vertigo Detective.
Millions each year suffer from dizziness and vertigo without any explanation.
Today, we will be looking into a case file. Let's solve this mystery case together. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move into the details of the dizziness or vertigo onset. Then I will offer my analysis. But first, I'm Dr. Kim Bell. I'm a licensed physical therapist and the Vertigo Detective. This channel exists to offer information, education, and hope to people with dizziness and vertigo. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anyone in this video, but simply speculating on what might be happening in a case like this. Be sure to subscribe if you're ready to become a Vertigo Detective yourself.
Put on your Vertigo Detective hat as we investigate our first unsolved vertigo mystery with Dr. Bell.
You clicked on this video because you're tired of feeling dizzy and off balance. If your case has gone unsolved, you may have realized that you have to become a vertigo detective for your own case. That's what happened to me. But before we dive into this case, you need to know this. Most people are doing one critical thing wrong when trying to cure their vertigo. Fixing this one mistake could change everything. I'll reveal it in just a minute. What is our vertigo case file of the day?
Today, we're going to look at a case of a 24-year-old female athlete who feels an onset of dizziness most days around 9 a.m. that lasts for a few hours, then slowly resolves on its own. She has been to her doctor and seen many specialists, but has not found any answers or relief. All her tests were normal: blood work, brain MRI, hearing tests, all normal. Her doctor prescribed meclizine to take as needed. The medication helps, but the symptoms keep coming back. Overall, she is very healthy. So far, her case of dizziness is unsolved, but it is affecting her life almost every day, causing her to take medications that give her temporary relief. But she doesn't like the side effects. So, Dr. Bell, what could be causing this mysterious case of dizziness?
We'll get into the possibilities, but first, let's look at the details. I would ask her, what is your nighttime routine before these episodes of dizziness? How did you sleep the night before? And then what exactly is your morning routine on the days you feel the dizziness starting around 9 a.m.? In order to investigate these cases, we want to look at all the circumstances leading up to these episodes.
She says that the night before she works out and goes to bed on time. Nothing unusual. No dizziness at night or in the middle of the night. She wakes up feeling fine, goes to work out, eats breakfast, and heads to work. On some days, the dizziness hits her while on the way to work or at work. She gets lightheaded and her heart beats faster sometimes when she feels really dizzy. She also notices that her ears feel full. Sometimes she feels nausea with dizziness. Occasionally, she reports bloating in her abdomen or a headache with the onset of dizziness, but not always.
Does she take any other medications in the morning? I would want to look at medication side effects.
She only takes meclizine after the dizziness starts, but no other medications.
Okay. What does she say she's doing for a workout?
2-mile running or walking most mornings, with stretching afterwards on most days. Some light weights in a circuit 3 days a week.
Okay. And then what does she say she's eating for breakfast?
For breakfast, some days she has a protein shake, and other days she has a yogurt parfait with bananas and strawberries. Why are you asking about breakfast? What does that have to do with it?
Well, we're wondering why her dizziness seems to get worse during certain times of the day, or after certain activities. It seems to be occurring around the same time when it happens. She's not saying it's happening every single day, but on the days that she is getting the dizziness, it's happening around the same time. So in those cases, I really want to look at the routine and maybe what's consistent about her routine on the days she's having the dizziness, and then what was absent from her routine on the days that she does not experience the dizziness in the morning. So some things I'm hearing you say are like, she sometimes has nausea, but not all the time. She sometimes has a headache with it, but not all the time. She sometimes feels abdominal bloating. And then she does notice the fullness in her ears. Those are some clues I'm picking up on. But the biggest mistake that people make when dealing with vertigo is relying solely on medication. While medication may dull their symptoms temporarily and literally help them survive, it usually does not fix the underlying problem, especially meclizine. Now, there are some medications that are prescribed to target the underlying suspected root cause of dizziness, but an example of a medication like meclizine, which she was given in this case, is just targeted to suppress or mask the symptoms. And this means that her vertigo or her dizziness is going to keep coming back when the medication wears off. Now, disclaimer here, I want to say that all patients should take their medications as prescribed, and they should not change or stop any of their medications without talking to their doctor first. But frequently, meclizine is prescribed for as needed use. So if it's possible to cut down on the dizzy spells and therefore require less meclizine overall, that would be optimal in this case, because then she won't have as many medication side effects and she won't have as many bad days. So that's kind of how I would think about this. Instead of just saying, okay, she takes the pill and that's good enough, even though she's not satisfied with that outcome, my approach for this case would be to try to give her strategies to relieve the dizziness and vertigo in the moment. And I think it sounds like the medication is helping with that temporarily. But then I also want to look at the root cause so we can try to prevent these future episodes of dizziness if possible.
So how would you analyze this case?
Well, I want to just kind of go through all the details that she shared with us. So she's not taking any other medication, so it's not medication side effect related. And that's something I always think about when it happens at the same time almost every day.
Do you think it has to do anything with her exercise routine?
Well, I guess that depends. I mean, she's saying that she's running about 2 miles running or walking. If that's pretty routine for her, then that shouldn't cause a lot of cardiovascular stress. She's not doing like sprinting or anything really that's going to make her heart work overtime. It sounds like she's in pretty good shape. She's a female athlete. She has a pretty consistent workout. She's lifting weights, but she's saying they're light weights. It's not like she's doing, bodybuilding or powerlifting or anything like that. A lot of times certain exercises can cause dizziness for people, but those might fall under the category of things that involve a lot of head motions through space. If it's an inner ear related dizziness, for example, if somebody has BPPV, that's the ear crystals, then maybe when they do burpees or do certain yoga poses, or they're doing a Pilates class, or they're doing sit-ups or planks or swimming, and all these things involve changing the position of your head, then they would experience dizziness or vertigo during the exercise. But she's not saying that. She's not saying that she's getting dizzy while she's exercising. She's actually just telling you that's part of her morning routine, but the dizziness isn't really hitting her until after she's headed to work around 9 o'clock. So I don't think in this case, even though in some cases exercise can help us figure out the root cause of the dizziness or vertigo, in this case, I'm going to eliminate that as a possible causative factor for her dizzy spells.
Okay. Then what about her breakfast?
Yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit further, mainly because she's talking about fullness in her ears and also the abdominal bloating symptom. So let's review that again. What did she say she's eating for breakfast?
For breakfast, she has a protein shake, either that or a yogurt parfait with bananas and strawberries.
Okay. And is she able to nail down the actual breakfast she's having on the days that she's having the dizzy spells?
She says she typically has issues when she has the yogurt parfait with bananas and strawberries.
Okay. So let's look at that. So if she's having, so there's kind of usually 3 components of a yogurt parfait. We've got the yogurt base, which is going to be a dairy. We've got potentially some granola, which could have a gluten component or maybe some processed sugar. And then we have the fruit component. In this case, that's going to be the bananas and the strawberries. So one thing is that she could, if we think she might be reacting to the dairy, we could suggest for her to switch her yogurt to something that's more easily digestible, such as now if people prefer cow dairy, they can switch to A2/A2 dairy, which is easier for a lot of people that are having some bloating and digestive issues after eating dairy. So she could possibly, I might recommend for her to consider switching her yogurt to the A2/A2 yogurt, or switching to something that's more easily digestible like sheep yogurt. That's one possible idea if we want to test whether it's the dairy that's contributing to her dizzy spells. If she takes a digestive enzyme for milk, that can also possibly help in some cases, but the dairy may not be the problem for her.
So what's left?
Well, she could consider if it's a gluten intolerance potentially, but that would show up other times of the day too, because I mean, the standard American diet, most people are getting exposed to a lot of gluten. So I would think at this point, if she had a gluten intolerance or if she had a gluten sensitivity that was showing up in reaction to the granola, she might be putting on her parfait that she would be complaining of these food reactions at other times of the day after eating other meals like pasta, bread, sandwiches. Even a lot of candy, interestingly, has wheat flour in it, and so it has gluten. So I don't really think it's a gluten reaction because she's not talking about having these reactions during other meals as well. It's really specific to this morning. So then the thing I'm really leaning towards here is the bananas and the strawberries. And I've seen this in a lot of my patients.
Interesting. So you're pointing at bananas and strawberry.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So she may be reacting to the histamines in her fruit. Especially, I find this when people complain of some bloating, occasional bloating, and the fullness in the ears for me is the real clue here. So when people feel like they develop fullness in their ears at the sort of spontaneously, like they didn't go swimming, they didn't get water in their ear, they didn't have a sinus infection, they don't have an ear infection. This is just spontaneous onset of fullness in their ears, and it seems to trend with the onset of their dizzy spells, and this seems to correlate with foods that they're eating. So one of the things I'm thinking about is potentially a high histamine food, that maybe they're having a gut-related histamine response in their body, and then that can be triggering the ears to feel full. It can trigger some of the other symptoms like occasional nausea, occasional headache, maybe some bloating with that, but then also it can cause a dizzy spell.
Interesting. I've never heard of that before. Can you tell me more about high histamine foods?
Yes, let's take a look at some high histamine foods. To show you a little bit more about this concept of the high histamine foods potentially triggering dizzy spells for people, this is very common in mystery cases that I see. Let's take a look at this. I just pulled up my internet browser here and I typed in high histamine foods, and then I just hit enter, and this is what Google is showing me. So some examples of high histamine foods from sources across the web. They give examples here. And look at this one right here, strawberries. Strawberries are notoriously high in histamine. There are certain other fruits that are high in histamine also. WebMD has an article on high histamine foods, and here are some that are listed on WebMD. Banana, pineapple, papaya, certain citrus fruits, strawberries, and cherries. There's also some vegetables that are on this list: tomatoes, eggplant, spinach. So this is really just a starting place. And if this sounds like you, I would encourage you, and what I would do is refer this patient to a licensed dietitian or a nutritionist, some kind of a coach to help them figure out their diet, because They may need to substitute that fruit with something else in the parfait, or maybe pick a different breakfast. Like, for example, maybe scrambled eggs or some other kind of breakfast may be more appropriate for this person, and that's the angle I would take as the Vertigo detective to try to resolve this case. So I would tell this patient, go ahead and take your meclizine as needed and of course as prescribed, and talk about any changes to your medication with your doctor before you make any changes. But if you're able to change your diet and cut out these high histamine foods that you're having a reaction to potentially, and then therefore you stop having these dizzy spells, then you may no longer need the meclizine. And that would be the optimal outcome in this case.
Wow, I never thought of food causing dizziness.
Yes, in fact, in my book, which just came out, be sure to pick up a copy on Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books. There's a link in the description. My book called Navigating the Healthcare System as a Dizzy Patient. I actually cover a chapter called Thinking Outside the Box, and this is where I talk about solutions that I've come up with for mystery cases of dizziness or vertigo. And I put together a whole list of foods that can trigger dizzy spells and vertigo for all different sorts of reasons. The food triggers are really specific to the root cause that's causing the dizziness or vertigo. So the list of foods that can possibly trigger dizziness or vertigo is actually a lot longer than you might expect. So to recap, understand the root cause. Don't just mask the symptoms with medication as the long-term plan for your case. Don't overlook the gut as a possible root cause. For mystery cases, we have to think outside the box. And the next time that dizziness or vertigo strikes after a meal, remember to make a note of what you ate. If you can identify a possible food trigger causing your symptoms and eliminate that food from your diet, then you may be able to get back to feeling steady, balanced, and free of dizziness.
It's case closed for today. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Vertigo Detective Case Files.
If you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tips and case files. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Let me know in the comments, what's the biggest struggle you face day to day with dizziness or vertigo? I'd love to help you find a solution.